866-957-2874. You're listening to Breitbart News Daily with your host, Mike Slater, on SiriusXM Patriot 125.
Tim in South Dakota says, do we think that Tulsi and Cash will be able to get enough votes to be confirmed? Yeah, I do. I want to go to Congressman Michael Cloud, representing the Corpus Christi area of Texas. Congressman, how you doing?
Doing good. Good morning.
And to you. Listen, we are loving all the winning. We're on fire here. Everything's great. But we want to make sure that these things get codified into law. So the executive orders are tremendous, but it's, quote unquote, just an executive order. What is Congress doing to back these up?
Yeah, exactly. It's been great to watch, and of course, it's nice to be able to watch the news today and to see everything that President Trump is doing. But certainly, our job in Congress, we got to know that we can't just sit here on our hands and watch the president do some great work. We've got to make sure that we make these policies last beyond his presidency. And so, one of the things we're doing, we just introduced the Dismantle DEI Act, and we've seen how horrible DEI is in our country, in our government, and what the government has done to force feed this leftist divisive ideology on the American people. And so what our bill does is it goes through, we know the Biden administration set up offices in virtually every single agency. Many of them, that kind of became the priority over whatever their actual job was to do. And so it eliminates it through every single agency. It goes and eliminates it in the grant writing process. We've seen how grants, again, in virtually every single agency that awards grants, these kind of grants are going out. We saw it in USAID being force-feed on the world. But then if you were a business wanting to do business with the federal government, they were forcing your business to adopt these practices and force-feed this on your employees, these kind of ideologies, if you wanted to do business with the federal government. And so that's not what this country is about. We need to be built on merit, on character. Dr. Martin Luther King's dream of content of character, those kind of things need to win the day when it comes to hiring practices and when it comes to how we associate with people. And so we've introduced this bill to codify the great work that President Trump's doing and make sure this lasts beyond his presidency.
Okay. So if I may, I'm just a guy. I don't know how you guys work.
Yeah.
Like your Robert's Rules of Order, like give me a headache and I'm out. Like as soon as I I can't deal with that. So I'm just like, I could never make it there. What I feel like you guys are like bogged down by this reconciliation bill, and I'm not saying it's not important, but when are we going to see some other stuff getting passed too?
Yeah, I've had the same thought, to be honest. We could be bringing some of these issues to the floor and making sure that we're doing the good work. We've got to realize, and the thing that I keep saying when I'm talking to colleagues up here, we've got 18 months to save the country. We could hope for a good turnout in the midterms. We certainly shouldn't assume that. This is just a unique opportunity that we have in history to get the wins for the American people and to earn our keep, so to speak. And so, we need to be full force, full-throated, as ambitious as President Trump is in pushing for these initiatives. And that's one of the reasons we've introduced this bill, already 50 co-sponsors on it, and working to get more.
And I mean this genuinely. I almost mean this is like an order of operations question. Like, why can't the House move at a speed that somewhat resembles the executive branch? I know it's probably easier for the executive branch. I understand that. There's some grace given.
Yeah, right.
Why isn't there like a bill a day? Like what? And I'm not trying to be like combative. I'm just like wondering like why is that literally not a thing?
Well, I have those same questions, as an American and certainly as somebody working up here. You're right. It is harder, so you would expect it to go a little slower, but I'd like us to be doing a little more than we're doing right now, frankly. And even moving on the reconciliation front, that's an important thing. I think we're finally getting to a place where we're going to be able to move forward on that. I'd like to see everything move quicker. I'm very concerned, watching the clock every single day. Like, okay, we've 18 months. We got a lot of work to do, and we need to be big and bold in accomplishing that.
We played a clip earlier. I don't think I have it here anymore. No, I don't have it, but it's who is it? I forget who it is on Rogan's show, and he says watching the Democrats, like watching Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer and some of these guys, it's like watching dinosaurs who have not realized that a meteor has hit the planet, and it's a totally different world, and they're just operating on it like they don't know what's hit them yet. And I think it's definitely true because they only have one tool on their playbook, and like that's the one play they keep running, and it's like you guys are getting left way behind. But I think that's true about a lot of Republicans as well. I just wonder if you think Republicans realize how different things are now from even just a couple months ago, or if the House is still operating as if it's 2024 or, dare I say, 2007.
Yeah, there's a growing mass, I think, of Republicans in Congress who get where we're at, but we got to get that to 218, and so that's the challenge. And you know, I the last thing I'm going to do is be someone up here who's defending Congress. I didn't run to because I thought Congress was working. I ran because I thought Congress wasn't working well. If it was doing great, I'd have stayed home, spent more time with my family. But you know, we've got a lot of work to do, and I mean the urgency couldn't. You know, I mean, this is the moment we work for. This is why we run. This is why we get here, and we should be willing to lay it on the line to accomplish what needs to be done for the American people. Do it quickly. Do it as much as we can, as quickly as we can. Recognize it. There's a scripture I point to all the time that says, taking the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. I mean, there's been so much evil that's been foisted upon this country over the last, and we have to have a sense of urgency that we have to make the most of every single opportunity before us. And frankly, I get tired of well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Like afraid of a news cycle or whatever. You know, fear is really what has typically driven Washington, D.C. and what keeps us from getting great stuff done. It's fear of a bad news cycle or fear about this or fear about that instead of let's do what's right, then let's go home and win the argument with the American people.
Yeah, there's no more news cycles. This is another thing that's different. For my whole lifetime, there was a news cycle. That doesn't exist anymore.
Broken now. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
like Trump has crushed through all of this. Like Trump drove a steamroller through the Overton window. Like, so everyone just needs to forget about that. It's a totally different game. Like we're not playing football anymore. I don't know what we're doing, but it's something totally different. Everyone needs to stop pretending like we're playing the old thing. What have you liked out of DOGE? And again, another same thing. What can be codified into law either this year or next year to make this permanent? Because I'm worried it's going to be like the VA when Trump fired a bunch of people from the VA and then Biden came in and rehired them all with back pay. So how do we make DOGE cuts permanent? Yeah,
exactly. What we can't do is empty the bucket, so to speak, and then just leave it empty for the next person to come in. And we've got to restructure, reformat how we're doing things. You know, I'm on the appropriations committee, so sometimes we'd have these conversations about the cuts that, you know, hey, we're spending money on wasteful things. You know, we need to rein in the cuts. And sometimes you get in those conversations, well, if we cut that, we're going to have to fire people. It's like, yes, that's actually the goal. You know, yes. We have too many people working in the federal government. We certainly need a federal workforce. We do have a responsibility, but we have virtually every single agency has way gone beyond its original mandate and purpose and is not doing an effective job for the American people. So we've got to rein this in. From a DOGE perspective, you know, being in Congress and especially with the Biden administration, like you have these agencies and these the bureaucracy, basically their mentality oftentimes is we're permanent. You as an elected official are temporary. If we don't like what you want, we're going to slow walk it. We're going to do everything we can to oppose it. When we would try to get information to make the decisions we need or to find waste, fraud, abuse, corruption, and the like, you know, they're doing more to cover it up than to provide the information. And so from the administrative perspective, and Elon and his team with that, I mean, it just brought a bunch of transparency to it. And us having an administration that's willing to work with us and to go in and to be honest about the information and be honest with the American people about where we're at is a huge first step, because you can see that when, you know, just for example, the last couple of weeks over USAID, and you're going to see this in every single agency as we go through agency after agency after agency, when the American people know the truth, it's like all the lies and all the spending and all the fear and mantra about, oh, if you cut this or you find savings here, the world's going to collapse. We won't have any soft power in the world, or, you know, all these different kind of things. You're like, we are spending money on ridiculous stuff while the American people are hurting and trying to buy eggs. And, we're at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the work being done there, but it's exciting to see how fast that's moving. And again, it's going to take Congress coming behind it and not just having tweets that, rally the American people, but we've got to then go ahead and say, well, let's find the savings for the American people. Let's pass the laws that shrink the government and put us on a good fiscal footing going forward.
I just think what a shame it would be if we elect Trump and like the most powerful businessman in the world, the most impressive businessman of our lifetimes, gets into D.C., like guts all this stuff, and then you guys drop the ball, like Congress doesn't do anything, and then it all comes back again later. We're like, oh, well, like what was that? Yeah. So like USAID like needs to be gone, right? You need to just, because Elon can cut it. I guess the executive branch can cut it from 10,000 employees down to 269, but there's nothing to say that it can't just go back up to 10,000, in a couple of years, right? So,
right. We've got to redefine the baseline, so to speak, of what we're spending every year. Right now we're spending $2 trillion a year over what we take in.
That's so easy to cut, though. Like Elon's whole thing is he said there's $700 billion of straight fraud, $700 billion. And then he said there's a trillion plus of just like ridiculous waste. So there's $2 trillion, boom, right there. We could balance the budget just getting rid of fraud.
Just through COVID, the federal government grew something like 30% just through the 2 years of COVID. And it's not like anybody was looking at the federal government before we headed into COVID thinking that was a lean, mean fighting machine of the federal government.
So this is such a layup. This is really not even as hard. So why is it so hard? If it's not hard, it's like we're doing a layup with a 400-pound weight vest. Like, let's just do it. We've got to have people who recognize the moment we're in. And I think we're getting there. I'd like to see it moving faster, but I think people are realizing the moment we're in, realizing like, what in the world are we doing here? If we're not here to capture this moment, some people have spent maybe a lifetime up here, so and it's like, this is what you've been waiting for, the moment where we can get this stuff done for the American people. So we just got to do it. We had a question.
Failure is not an option.
My last question for you. I had someone call in earlier because we were just talking about how the Democrats are so far behind. It's like embarrassing. Like I feel bad. Like Hakeem Jeffries said, this is what they went with, Congressman. They went with DOGE is stealing from the American people. Stop the steal. You're like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, how does that, like, obviously that's wrong, but like, you really think that's like the talking point that's going to, catapult you guys to victory? So the Democrats are so far behind, and I don't even want to rebuke them because they're so far, it's not even worth it, right? Like if we just look back at them and we just rebuke ridiculous things they're saying, then that's just going to slow us down. We got to keep going. But someone called in and said, if DOGE and the Republicans and everything we're doing right now is able to destroy the Democratic Party, because it's all crumbling, right? USAID and all the rest, the whole thing's crumbling. What do you think will rise from its ashes? And I think it's an interesting question. What are they going to do now?
Yeah, I don't think they know, first of all. And one of the things that's interesting, if you just look at from an ideological perspective, what it's taken for leftism to survive in our country. I mean, now we're realizing it's been a massive tax-funded operation that's really been force-fed on the American people. So you have conservatism and these founding principles that our country were founded upon, working against these Marxist ideologies. And yet conservatism and these founding principles of our country have been able to survive and exist, even in the fact that we've had this massive money laundering scheme going through our federal government to uphold these leftist ideologies. And then we even put on that a censorship regime for a while in our country that the American people have rejected, and it still couldn't kill the spirit of freedom and liberty in our country. Because when we had a voice in President Trump stand up and say, remind us of who we are, so to speak, the American people rallied behind it. So, this is for a unique time for us to, and it's been interesting. We had a committee hearing and oversight this week, and it seemed like right after the election, you had a couple moments of introspection from our friends across the aisle, so to speak, as you say up here. And you thought for a minute, like, maybe they would get on board with DOGE and everything, but from a fiscal perspective and those kind of things. But I think what they're realizing is it's exposing the big lie of,
Yes.
we've been, you said you were trying to help the American people, but you weren't. You said this, but you're,
Yes.
and so
That's really interesting.
we go
It's
to
not
these
about
hearings,
the
and
money.
all we hear is Elon, 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 and Elon. Nobody's debating what's the information that's coming out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe there was a moment when they could have come out for cutting the spending, but now they can't, because if they come up with that, it exposes what a fraud, like with the game, it exposes the game that they've been running and benefiting from for all these years. So now they have to be for the spending and against Elon because of it. Yeah, what a time. Congressman Michael Cloud represents Corpus Christi area. Congressman Rep Cloud TX on the Twitter. Good to talk to you, Congressman. Thank you.
Good thing. Thank you. God bless.
Keep up the good work. Tell everyone to get going. I know you share the sentiment, but I'm starting to get frustrated by the House now, which, as expected, I'll give them some time. Or I don't want to give them time. I'll give them some grace. I think they're as shocked as maybe we are by how effective it is. Have you ever had that feeling? Sometimes I have that feeling. Like, I have this feeling sometimes I forget I'm hosting the show. Like, there'll be a great caller and I'll just be listening. And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, my turn to talk. Like I forget. Or like I'll be watching like the game. I'll be coaching like the kids' game and like they're doing great. And then I'm like, oh geez, I'm coaching. Yeah, you go over there. What? I'll forget. Like maybe that's a little bit of Congress. Maybe Congress is so. I'm trying to help them. Maybe Congress is so mesmerized by how amazing the executive branch is, what they're doing, that they're just sitting there being like, wow, this is really impressive. And someone just needs to be like, hey, you're part of it too. Like, go do that. And they're like, oh yeah, oh geez, yeah, here's a bill a day. Is that so hard? Is that too much to ask for? A bill a day? 866-95-PATRIOT, Mike Slater, Breitbart News Daily. Spread the word.